Hi, I'm Philosophy Witch. I haven't really thought of a slogan yet, but this is my channel, and for a long time I've really been wanting to address this sort of very basic subject of how I got into the practice of magic and how I have come to identify as a witch and to practice as a witch. And I think the big takeaway that I want to put into this video is it's for people who don't believe in it at all, but also for people who just kind of think of it as, oh, you know, there's something to it, but it's purely psychological, it's purely just an art form or an imaginative way to sort of commune with your subconscious. Like, yes, it is that, but for people who think that it's purely symbolic, something that I really want to put in this video is the ways that I have come to experience that it is, there's something much deeper going on than that. And so I've come out to one of my favorite spots in town. This is the Silos area. I have kind of a special relationship with the Silos for some reason. I don't even know why. It's always been that way. I just really like this area. So I guess first I'll give a little bit of how I came to think of myself as a witch, and it actually goes back quite a bit to basically it all started when I began to have a spiritual awakening, and that's a very long story. I won't tell all of that in this video, but for a long time I was going through a period of intense synchronicity, intense karmic relationships, just crazy stuff happening, where I just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's something very deep going on with reality, and that I was on a journey. And I ended up doing some crazy stuff that messed up my life even more, and I ended up homeless, and I ended up jobless and slammed with post-traumatic stress disorder in a horrible place, just really messed up and injured in a lot of ways. And basically my plans weren't working, and like what I was doing was not working. And I had a moment when I just kind of sat down and I admitted it, and I said, okay, this journey that I'm on, I know that I'm not, the ways that I've been doing it's not, my way's not working. So instead of just scrapping all of it, I'm going to say, okay, well, maybe I don't have to give up on this, but maybe I also don't have to try and force it to be the way I want it to be. Maybe I'll just open up to whatever the right way is, and just kind of do the right thing and let go of the things that I don't want to let go of, and just kind of submit to. I didn't even really know what it was that I was submitting to, and I didn't really know. But the thing is, like, it was that very night that I had a very, very, very big sign. Like, I was walking home from work and I had something happen that was one of the biggest signs I've ever gotten, and it was very blatant. And I'm actually going to go into it in the second part of this video, which is where I discuss, actually I might make a separate video entirely for that purpose. That might come right after this one, and it's going to be about some of the biggest signs that I have gotten. And they are, they're pretty extraordinary if you ask me. So, one thing I didn't realize at the time is that one of the things that was said to me when I buy this sign, it was actually referring to the power that I can find in the practice of magic. Some of the words that were used, I realized later, it dawned on me, like, it really seems like that's what it was talking about. And it wasn't too long after that, you know, that as I've been progressing on, like, with breath meditation and with just kind of looking into all these sort of spiritual ideas that seemed to explain what was happening to me, I had a night where, like, I just kind of had, like, this idea of, like, being a witch just kind of, like, in the back of my mind. But then I had this one night, and I don't remember, there was something special going on with the moon. It was either a new moon or a full moon, but it was a very electric kind of energy in the air, and I just remember I was like, you know what, I really feel like it's time for me to start identifying as a witch. I just felt it, and I started looking into it, and it wasn't too long after that I performed my very first ritual, and it was very kind of like just thrown together, and that was on a full moon. I think it was the first, no, it was in November of 2019, so it was before the beginning of 2020, but it was, I think there was something special about that moon. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that was the first ritual I ever performed. And when I performed this ritual, I had just moved into a transitional housing, which is like a homeless shelter, and I was struggling with trying to find some kind of work that wouldn't drive me insane. And because of the place that I was in with my energy and with the things that were going on with my karma, I was having a very difficult time being able to find work, because I kept running into these situations where I was having to deal with a lot of crazy people who were just assholes, and I also was way too raw to deal with any kind of triggering. I just wasn't functioning very well, and I was really screwed. And so one of the things that I focused on in the ritual, one of the intentions, I set a lot of intentions, but one of the intentions was to fix that area of my life, to bring in success and work. And this is the first point, the first thing, the first item of this video is that this was the very first ritual that I ever performed, and it worked so well, because it was like right after that I got 2 job offers. I still have both those jobs. I got 2 job offers. One of those jobs was for a program that is a job and also a vocational rehab program that has pretty much done so much to save my life. And everything just started going uphill from there. Like, my brain started to recover, and I've just been on a continuous uphill streak ever since then. You know, I set up an altar, and there were some bumps along the road, and there was actually, this is something that the thing about this story that makes it so difficult for me to relate to people is that it's so deep, and there's so many things that take so much explaining, and it's something that I see so very clearly on the inside of me, and just like, I really have to be able to get people to see through my eyes in order to understand this story, and that's something that's going to take a lot of work. And so I'm trying not to put too much into one video, and so I have to segregate some things. And like, during the initial beginning of this upward streak after that first ritual that I performed, I had an omen, which I'll probably touch upon later, and it was very, very creepy. It's very much like an omen that I had before, and I knew exactly what it meant, and I was right, where basically it was signaling to me that there was going to be, I felt like there was some kind of evil that was just kind of laughing at me, that's like, ha ha ha, your fears aren't done with you yet. And so I ended up having to deal with this thing in the homeless shelter where I was living, where I had to deal with a roommate who was like out of jail, and who was very loud and abrasive and obnoxious, who was up all night long. And if you've never dealt with PTSD, like real PTSD, and like the kind where you can't sleep, you have no idea how horrible it is to be like so desperately tired that you feel like your brain's gonna shut down, and you can lay in bed for 10 hours with your eyes closed and not feel like you slept. It's a living hell, and that's what I was going through, and I was just starting to be able to sleep again, and now this person comes into my room, and I can't, even when I don't have like fresh PTSD, I can't sleep in the same room with someone that I've been in a relationship with for 6 months, let alone a stranger out of jail when I'm just struggling to be able to sleep at all. So I ended up crying on the living room floor, and all this stuff happening, and the other girls in the unit thought that I was nuts, and they were kind of like ganging up on me, and I was like, oh shit, this is not going to work. I have to find another place to stay. What am I going to do? And you know, it really kind of ticked me off, because with my rituals and with everything I was doing, I was kind of starting to build my own space again, and then it was just demolished. And then I was like, and it kind of, because I've been staying out of my room as long as she was there, but it kind of was like, you know what, I need to go back in there. And so I went back in there, and I kind of started to focus on my space again, and I took my altar out, and one of the things that I put on my altar was a little orange that was just kind of a symbolic, it was kind of an offering, like, to whatever spirits or energies wanted to help me. And I noticed the orange was rotting, and it was like, oh, that's kind of symbolic of neglect to me, and I don't think that's a good energy that I want to keep in my space. And so I ritualistically replaced it with a new fruit, and I just kind of reasserted my space, like energetically, like I did another ritual, I think, to sort of reassert my space, and I just kind of expressed that intention. The very next day, I come home, and the girl has moved out. She's moved in with the other girl. I have the whole room to myself, and I ended up having that whole room to myself from then on. I still have it all to myself. I am set up, and it all ended up working out. The girl who harassed me got kicked out. The other girl ended up getting kicked out as well, both for doing drugs. I'm still there. I continue to heal, and with regards to, like, I just want to specify that, like, this situation was not very easy for me, because the place where I lived, like, I'm just kind of cutting in with this because I realized I didn't explain it very well. This place where I lived, the homeless shelter, like, you're supposed to have roommates because the units are built to house 4 people, and the rules are kind of like you get put in one room, and the next person gets put in the other room, and each room has 2 people, and any new people who come in go with the newer person, which means the older person has seniority and gets to keep their room until the next person comes in. And so because of the rules, the new person was supposed to be with me, and I was not comfortable expressing my needs. I didn't feel like they would be considered to be valid. I was not comfortable saying I can't sleep with someone in my room, because I thought they were just going to be like, tough up, you know, or get out. We can't provide you services if you can't get along with other people, you know. And I didn't, and you know, that's kind of how the girls responded to me when I said like I'm having a hard time sleeping, and they're like, you're a lunatic, what's wrong with you? You can't expect us to just bow to your every need. And I'm like, I just need to be able to sleep. You're so loud. Can I just have my own room? You know, and I've always had a hard time expressing my needs, and so I just felt like I was fucked, basically, because I didn't expect anybody to listen to me, and you know, and so that was what the situation was. And the thing is that, like, and so, like, after I performed this ritual, the situation resolved itself, like, without me having to do, like, anything else to really advocate for myself. You know, at first the director was getting mad at me, the director of the facility was getting mad at me, and they were, you know, kind of like both complaining about me, and after that happened, it all just kind of resolved itself. Like, she moved out of my room, and both girls were living with each other, and like the director kind of figured out, and I was able to sort of express myself to him after that point, and it just came to be understood that, like, this is what I need, and it's a valid need. But I didn't have to really fight for it. It just kind of fell into place, and the director he came to sort of be like, okay, I understand what's going on now, and he's also like, I could see that those girls were ganging up on you, and it was messed up, and you know, and this was kind of a repeat of a situation that I had in the past that kind of was part of how I landed in that place of not getting my needs met and not feeling like it was going to work if I express those needs at all, and so just kind of trying to keep it to myself and then having it completely destroy me because I needed what I needed. And I think the omen was very clearly signaling that I was going to have to go through something else like that again, because I ended up in the same situation right after that, and basically it flipped, because after I started setting these intentions in my magic, like, and using magic to help resolve these things, it just, the whole situation, the problem just kind of melted on its own, and everything started working out in my favor. Every single time I take an intention with regards to my well-being, and I put it and I express it in a ritual, every single time that situation improves, like, dramatically. I also remember, yeah, like, I mean, there are a lot of tools that I use in my magic besides just rituals. Like, there are many, many different tools, and they all work for me very well. And, like, here's the thing that I want to say about, like, practice of magic is that, like, you can make a very strong argument for it being a psychological tool for programming your subconscious, and, like, oh, you believe that this is going to work, and so it causes you to have more confidence, and it causes you to bring up your problem-solving skills that you weren't aware were there, and you just to act in your own, in the interest of your own well-being more effectively. Like, absolutely, I think that is part of it. And but, like, people who dismiss, like, things like this as being merely psychological are kind of missing part of the picture, because the psychological thing is part of the whole picture. Like, really what magic is just a way to externalize and kind of like, conscious hold of the ways that you already commune with everything around you. Because, like, the whole, like, point of... It's a cat. Hi, cat. It's a cute little kitty. It's to sort of, but the whole point of witchcraft is that everything is connected in so many more ways than a lot of people think about. And as a human being, you are constantly in communication with your environment, and in a lot of ways, the things that happen to you in your life are kind of like you have actually dreamed them. I've had a lot of things happen to me during my the first couple years of my spiritual awakening, that it almost felt like they were coming from a dream, as though I was dreaming them up. And sort of I think life functions a lot like a dream, and you affect your environment and produce the events of your life from within. And magic is a way to actually simply take a hold of this. And this is a point that I want to make with this video, is that the way that a lot of people, when they hear the term magic, they think of something outside of the natural world, something that comes in that is different and separate from it, that, like, adds this new element that manipulates things in this unnatural way. And that's not actually what magic is at all. You're not adding anything. All you're doing is taking the pieces that are really kind of behind the scenes of reality already, and the ways that things already work, and you're simply manipulating them in a way that is conscious. So, like, I'm just kind of winging it with these videos, because, like, it's the only way to really get started. And I every time I try to talk about this stuff, I end up with this issue of just feeling like, gosh, how am I going to get all this out? Because it's just like the most beautiful poetic story inside me, and I experience it so deeply that it's like, how on earth am I going to help other people see this through my eyes? But, like, I know that it works, because it does. Like, it really does work. And I don't think you always have to know everything exactly about why it does work. I haven't, I mean, I think that the world is magic, and there's so much more going on than most people even think about, and the practice of magic is nothing unusual. I think one thing I wanted to bring in was, on that note, is there's a wonderful YouTuber named Damien Echols. I'll leave a link in the description to his channel. He is a wonderful person to look to for information if you are getting started with magic, because he's famous. Well, he's known because he was actually wrongly convicted of murder decades ago, and he spent 18 years on death row, and one of the things that saved him was the practice of magic. He would perform rituals all the time. He was very, very passionate about it, and after he got out of prison, he built his life around magic, and now he is starting a YouTube channel for the purpose of educating people about it. And he's actually, it's because of his videos that I learned about the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and that's how I started to become more interested in sort of classical magic, rather than simply my own made-up methods, which are also valid. But yeah, you can check out his channel. And one of the things that Damien talks about is, he makes a wonderful point about how when people think of like magic, like in terms of places or materials or tools, they tend to think that it has to be a particular kind of place or substance. Like it needs to be like crystals or trees, like it has to be organic from nature, raw, untouched kind of thing. And his point is that it doesn't really. Like pretty much everything is made out of the same material. Everything is magic and alive, basically. And he talks about this relationship that he has with the city of New York, which is it was like the first big city he ever experienced, and the first place that he saw after he got out of solitary confinement. And he forged this wonderful relationship with New York, where he just felt like it was feeding him with all of its life and beauty and power and like all the imagination of the city. And he talks about how like you can commune with a certain place or a certain thing as though it is alive, and if you treat it like it's alive, then it will respond as though it is alive. And so he has this relationship with New York as though it is an entity, kind of. And I feel that so much, because even before I was really conscious of or ready to admit that I thought of things this way, I've always been a mystic. Like my whole life, I've always been very, very sensitive to energy, and very kind of passionately lit with the magic of places. Like even like growing up without really getting to experience much because I was so sheltered, I would find so much beauty and exciting, electrifying energy in the grocery store, you know? And I would just be alive with the mood of this place, and it's always been that way for me. And I'll form connections with places, and for some reason, this is one of those places. I love the silos. Something kind of cool about the silos in this town is that, like, obviously they're abandoned, like they're not used anymore. But they've been here for a long time, and they're one of the biggest structures in Moscow. And when I was a writer in college, I think was when I really started to think about them, and they fascinate me because, like, they're very big, they're unchanging, they're just here. Like, they don't, like, they're white, like Moby Dick, you know, like, there's something about the color white. They're white like the sky is right now. They're, they don't really have a purpose. Like, they're not used anymore, but they're still here, and they still have a presence. They still play a role somehow, even though they don't really serve the purpose they were built for anymore. Like, and even though they don't really do anything, they're still here. There's something about them where they're just here. You know, and there's a silence about them that isn't silent. Like, they kind of sing. And there's something about their bigness and their stillness and their whiteness that it's like the great mystery of why we're here, you know? And I just feel this, I don't know. There's something very electric and alive about this little area. And I've always felt that. And it's just the most natural thing in the world for me to begin to step into the purposeful identity of a witch and to begin the practice of magic, because all I'm doing is just kind of owning that sense of communing with the world around me, and as though it were a living thing. Yeah, so I think those are the two main things I wanted to share with this video, is like just the story, those stories of the first initial rituals I've performed and how well they worked, just how quickly they worked and how big the results were and how important those results were to my life. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of other things about the practice of magic that I think will be very useful to anyone who is interested in it. So, and I haven't figured out what my stupid slogans are. I don't know, like, how to open and close videos right now. So I'm just gonna say, thanks for watching. I don't really know what else to say. So, bye.